Story 1. Am I the a-hole for disabling the AirTag my father planted on me? I, 32 female, have an overprotective single father. I know he means no harm, but he's severely draining my energy. I promised to visit him every weekend after moving out to live on my own. This week, I found that he planted an AirTag, a location tracking device, on my car without telling me. I value my freedom and privacy very much. I often go out of my way to erase my social media presence. I make sure that only a handful of selected friends can contact me, and even fewer know what I'm up to. When I was alerted that an unknown AirTag, which I immediately knew where it came from, was following me, I was furious. I called my father and confronted him, asking where he hid it. He was surprised I found out and refused to tell me where it was. I eventually found the AirTag purposely hidden under my car, glued to a magnet. We just had a conversation about this issue of his today. We had it almost every week, to be honest, and I was starting to open up to him. Then I come home to find this AirTag, and I honestly just want to disappear and never see him again. Which I wouldn't, but it's just how I feel. Am I overreacting? Am I the a-hole? Additional info. I've been living away from home since my early 20s. I just moved back to my hometown due to work, and my dad was expecting me to stay with him to make up for lost time. We've gone through arguments when I wanted to live alone, settling for weekly visits. Now I will only visit him once I'm feeling comfortable doing so. No, not overreacting. Anyone. I would be upset if it was anyone even as trusted as one of my parents or relatives put an AirTag on me tracking me. No, not the a-hole. It sounds like this person, this father, is just kind of lonely. Probably, I don't think he makes any friends of his own and really relies on the daughter visiting for any kind of social interaction and kind of gloms onto her. No, not the a-hole. Definitely not. Story 2. They're not my kids and not my problem. About a month ago, I found out both of my children were the results of my soon-to-be ex-wife's affairs. I've had a feeling for a while now that both of them weren't mine. 6 years ago, when my son was born, I was the happiest I'd ever been in my entire life. I had married my best friend, we had a child together, and everything seemed amazing. That was until he started getting older. After a few years, I started to have doubts that he was actually mine. He did not look like my child. The more he started to grow, the more I realized just how different he looked compared to what I would expect a child of mine to look like. I'm not petty or paranoid enough to let that alone drive me. It was my cheater of a wife that really set my alarms off. Whenever she went out, she never went where she said she did. She would have huge holes in her schedule she could never explain to me. She would refuse to allow me to interact with anyone from her workplace, and a close friend of hers accused her of flirting with her significant other at the time. It did not help that soon after our son was born, her lies started to catch up with her. Still, though, I loved her like the fool I was. She told me up and down how much she loved me whenever one of her lies caught up with her. She had convinced me that despite the fact she was a lying and manipulative woman, that she wasn't a lying, manipulative cheater. Last year, she got pregnant again, and I still held out a small bit of hope that it was mine. But when her daughter was born, it was obvious she was mixed race. I refused to sign the birth certificate, and the paternity test I demanded afterwards proved my suspicions right all along. Neither of them were mine. The day I got those test results were the day I filed for divorce from that cheater and walked away from the family I'd created. I knew that it would destroy our son's life to see me walk out. Despite my concerns, I was the best dad I could be to him. I loved him with all my heart and put in 110% into being the father he deserved. Now, though, when I see him, I'm filled with disgust. Disgust for my cheater of a wife. Disgust with myself for not trusting my instincts. And disgust that the last 6 years of my life have been for nothing. I've been told by multiple people now that I'm a monster for leaving my son like this. My ex has tried on multiple occasions since I moved out to use him to guilt me into getting back with her. She will have him call me at random hours of the night crying and begging for his daddy to come back. The day I moved out, she paraded him into the room as I packed my things to show me how much damage I am doing. In every conversation that he has brought up, both online and off, I'm berated and shamed. That despite the fact that I am not the boy's biological father, I am his dad. What I have sadly now realized is that, to most, my own feelings mean nothing. My parents are my only supporters through all of this, with my own siblings calling me a despicable person for abandoning a child like that. My feelings of betrayal and sadness mean nothing, because a child is involved. I know it's not his fault. I know that the man he called his father for his entire life just walked away. But why am I expecting to man up? Why should I have to pretend everything is fine and I don't feel contempt for this entire situation? Why should I put my own life and feelings aside? I never was the boy's father. I loved him like one, and honestly still do. But I would come to hate and contempt him if I had to play the role. Hate myself for not standing up and taking my own life back into my own hands. He is not my child, and even though it's not his fault, he's not my problem anymore. I completely can understand the anger that someone would feel after discovering that this life that they have cherished is not theirs. There's a lot of anger, and there's even more anger when no one seems to take that into account in judging him. I do think it's a little bit, I do think it's harsh. This is a 6-year-old child. It is kind of harsh. Also, where is the real father in all of this? And, this is also not taking into account all the legal proceedings that are probably going to happen in court after all of this. Is it possible that he could be forced to pay child support through all of this? And what about, what has the mom said about all this? Has he tried to explain? Has she tried to explain to the child what's going on? Has anyone tried to? It's a big mess. He is kind of a jerk for abandoning this kid as completely as it is. But there's like a big battle in the future. There's a lot that's going to take place. It could end up very differently.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 3. Ex-girlfriend wants to cut off our electricity? No problem. I was living with my girlfriend and a roommate, and we split the cost of every bill evenly, even though each bill was in one person's name. Well, that was the idea. But I naively helped my girlfriend pay her part of the bills, i.e. paid completely for most of them. The rent was in my name, the electricity in my girlfriend's, etc. Well, I eventually got tired of her trash, arguments, smelly gerbils, not doing chores, and we broke up. It was messy. She took ages to move out, making sure to mooch every penny she could before leaving. When she left, I immediately started a new electricity account in my name. A week later, I got a letter of confirmation in the mail, but I also received the electricity bill for the last 3 months my ex was living with us. I opened it without thinking. We couldn't even pay it if we wanted to because the bill was in her name. I shot her a text. Me. Yo, you got the electricity bill in the mail. It's $120, so come pick up $40 from each of us. X. Where's the other $40? We agreed I wouldn't pay bills after I move out. as if she did before. Me: you were still living here for the time period of the bill. X: this is hogwash. I'm not going to pay a thing. We had an agreement. Me: well, you can come over to get our part, or you can pay it alone. X: the way I see it, you can either bring the $120 to my place or have fun in the dark, lol. Me: you got me there. At this point, I realized that she doesn't know I started my own account with the electricity provider. She thought that by refusing to pay, the provider would cut off our lights. Good way to mooch another $40 from us, right? But that's not quite what happened. A few weeks later, I received another letter from the electric company with her name on it. Probably a late payment warning. I sent her a text to tell her, and she responded, "Lol, why are you so desperate to talk to me? You know what you have to do." Another letter came in for her. This one was probably late fees. I have to guess because I never opened them. I messaged her and she said, "I thought I told you never to talk to me again." As you wish, ma'am. More letters arrived, but from a new address. I Googled the new sender's address and found that they were debt collectors. Scary stuff. It's too bad I couldn't say a word to her. Now, about 2 or 3 months later, I received a phone call from my ex, and I'm greeted by, "What the hell? These people are calling my parents' house. I've got all these late fees. Debt collectors!" I told her that if she wants our part of the bill, she knows what to do. Realizing that she had no other choice, she caved and came for the money. My roommate and I didn't give her a cent towards late fees, and I probably look so fracking smug giving her my money for the last time. Yep, that's about right. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Should have listened and just not been all high and mighty. And I think you should have researched or maybe had a little bit of sense to look into how bills work. She was so used to having everything done for her that it just blew up in her face. Story 4. Entitled Old Hag at Oppenheimer. As Karen's stories go, this isn't exactly a barn burner, but here goes. Since tickets for Oppenheimer were incredibly hard to get in my area for some reason, I ended up having to see this movie by myself at 9:30 p.m. on Saturday night. Not incredibly convenient for me, but I really wanted to see it, and at least at that hour there won't be too many kids. So I show up, grab some Skittles and a soda, and go sit down. A few minutes into the previews, Karen shows up, walks to what is apparently her seat, decides she doesn't like that one, and walks back to my aisle and starts whining at the person sitting about 3 seats to my left that she should have that seat. This is one of those theaters with the snazzy reclining seats and enough room that people don't have to stand up to let you through. The person to my right starts filming her, and I sit up to watch. She's on a tear about how this guy needs to give her the premium seat that he reserved in advance. He needs to respect his elders. He needs to show respect to women. He needs to stop using cancel culture on her because she's white. It should be noted that he was too. He needs to stop being a lazy, entitled millennial. The reason she gave this guy that needs to give up his seat? She had to go through atom bomb drills in elementary school, so she deserves to have a good view for this movie. I grab my phone and call the theater. The person on the other end of the line can hear her, says, "Let me guess, Theater 4? Security will be there in a second. You're our 5th call." They showed up, escorted her out of the theater, and the rest of us watched the movie in peace. Oh, man. Well, what would be her excuse for if this was the Barbie movie? Well, I had some of the original Barbies when I was growing up, so that's why you need to give me a seat. I don't think I've ever been in a theater that had regular seats and premium seats mixed. They've all been pretty much the same, so that would have probably been avoided. if it was that situation probably would have been avoided if all the seats were the same. But yeah, that's weak sauce. She just wanted to mooch a better seat. Also, if this was that late at night, were there other empty seats she could have taken? Just or tried to take? Not that it was right. But yeah, weird.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.